everybody. Today we're going to be telling the story of Goldilocks and the three bears. Here's Goldilocks and here are the three bears. Let's start with the story of the three bears. Once upon a time there were three bears and they got up very early one morning and Daddy Bear said, "Mummy Bear, would you like some porridge for breakfast?" And Baby Bear said, "I'd like some porridge, Daddy." So off Daddy went downstairs and started to make some delicious porridge. Well, he stirred it, he sprinkled in his oats and he put some water in and he put a little bit of milk and he stirred it and it bubbled and boiled. Well, in the meantime, there was Goldilocks and she lived on the other side of the woods and she lived with her mummy and daddy in a little cottage on a lane near a wood. So Goldilocks, one day she got up very early too and she thought, I'm going to get myself dressed today and I think I'm going to go downstairs because mummy and daddy aren't awake yet. So that's exactly what she did. She went downstairs after getting herself dressed and then she looked out the window and she thought, I think I'll have a little look out in the garden. Do you think that was a good idea, children? I don't think so. We don't go out in the garden without telling our mummy and daddy first, do we? So there was Goldilocks opening the back door with the big key and out she went into the garden and then she went to the gate and she looked over the gate and she couldn't see anybody out there, so she thought, I'm going to open the gate and go out and have a look and see what I can find. And so she did. We wouldn't do that, would we, children? We would always tell our mummies and daddies if we thought about going somewhere. And off she went down the lane. She skipped along quite happily, enjoying being out in the sunshine, and then she came to the ditch. So she jumped over the ditch and went into the wood. Well, she wandered through the wood and then she saw a little cottage. Meanwhile, in the cottage, Daddy Bear had made his lovely porridge and had put it all out on the table and everybody was ready to sit down and enjoy the porridge. Mummy tried it first and before she could say, "It's too hot, Baby Bear, hang on a moment," it was too late. Baby Bear had taken a big mouthful and it burnt his mouth. Mummy rushed and got him a drink of water and Daddy put him on his lap and then Baby Bear stopped sobbing and Daddy Bear said, "Let's go out for a walk until the porridge has cooled down and we all feel a bit better." So that's what they did. Goldilocks came up to the cottage door and knocked on the door. Knock, 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 knock. And nobody answered. So being Goldilocks and making the choices that she was making today, which weren't very good ones, she pushed the door open and went inside. Well, a lovely smell of porridge met her as she got into the cottage and she went up to the table where all the porridge had been served and had a good look at it and sniffed every bowl and then she put her tongue in the bowl too. We would never do that either. So then she decided to pick up the porridge spoons and have a little try. First she tried the big bowl and that had salt in it, so she spat it out on the table. And then she tried the other bowl of porridge and she spat that out onto the chair. And then she tried the small bowl. Well, that was delicious. And she ate it all up, scraping the bowl and then licked out the bowl. Her mummy and daddy would not have been very happy with her. Then she decided to have a little look around the cottage and saw the chairs and tried the big chair. She didn't like the big chair very much. It was too difficult to climb onto, so she climbed down again. And then she tried the other medium-sized chair, but that was a bit uncomfortable too and it had scratchy cushions on it, so she didn't like those. So she pushed all the cushions off and sat there for a minute seeing if she liked that better, but she didn't. And then she sat onto the Baby Bear's chair and she sat there and felt very comfortable, wriggled around a bit and then oops, all of a sudden the chair fell over and the leg came off and Goldilocks had bumped her head quite hard, so she felt a bit dazed after that. But she decided to go and have a little look around the cottage because she was very interested and quite nosy. And then she found a door that went up the stairs, so she went upstairs all the way to the bedroom She pushed open the door, and with her muddy shoes from the walk in the woods, she got mud all over the big bed, and then didn't like the look of that. And then she went on to Mummy Bear's bed, and she didn't like the soft cushions and the big pillows, so she kicked off the covers onto the floor. And then she saw Baby Bear's bed, and that looked very comfortable, so she lay down, and because she'd been up so early, she fell fast asleep. Well, then the bears came back. They couldn't understand it. They pushed open the doors to their cottage, and there was and it was open, and they just walked straight in, which was very weird, as they were sure they'd locked the door. Well, they went over to their porridge pots, because by that time they were quite hungry, and they decided to eat their porridge up. And then Daddy Bear looked in horror as he saw that some of his porridge was spilt on the table, and it looked like it had been spat out. How revolting. So he said, "Who's been eating my porridge?" And Mummy Bear said, "Who's been eating my porridge?" And Baby Bear said, "Who's been eating my porridge and is eating it all up?" So then they looked at their chairs, and Mummy Bear noticed some nasty porridge spat onto the chairs too. And she said, and Daddy Bear said, "Who's been sitting in my chair?" And Mummy Bear said, "Who's been sitting in my chair?" And Baby Bear said, "Who's been sitting in my chair and has broken it?" And he cried and cried. And then Daddy Bear said, "I think there is somebody in our house." So they had a look about under the chairs and tables and in the kitchen, and then they went upstairs, and Mummy Bear went first. Off she went up the stairs to have a look to see what was happening. And Daddy Bear peeped round her and said, "Who's been sleeping in my bed and has got big horrible footprints over it?" And Mummy Bear said, "Who's been sleeping in my bed and has kicked all my covers on the floor with mud all over them?" And Baby Bear said, "Who's that sleeping in my bed and they're still there?" And when she heard Baby Bear's squeaky voice, she looked to the bears and jumped out of the window and was never seen again. And Goldilocks ran all the way home whilst the bears tidied up their house and mended, and Daddy Bear made some more porridge. And Goldilocks got in big trouble when she got home, and her mummy made her write a note to say how sorry she was, and they went together and posted it through the door, and they all lived happily ever after. The end. Bye everybody.